State Cardinals showdown, and it's next. The young Canadian Dan McClellan versus the defending Open champ Bill O'Neill. You'll see it live when we return to Jersey. The 68th Lumber Liquidators U.S. Open is brought to you by Budweiser. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. By the makers of One A Day Men's 50+ Advantage, the multivitamin with more of what matters. By Go RVing. Visit GoRVing.com to watch a free video. Go affordably. Go RVing. And by Lumber Liquidators. Hardwood flooring for less.
Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Tiffany Rios, slightly better than Randy Peterson on the karaoke mic last night, a former contestant on American Idol and a native of Parsippany, New Jersey, not too far from here with our national anthem. Time now for the introduction, and we begin with our 6th seed, Bill O'Neill.
The number 6 seed owns 3 Lumber Liquidators PBA Tour titles, the defending U.S. Open champion from Levittown, PA, the real deal, Bill O'Neill.
Huge family and local support tonight, Randy, for Bill. That can be a positive and a negative as well.
A lot of pressure bowling in front of family and friends. I can speak from experience and making some match play and television appearances with family and friends there. A lot of pressure, but a lot of fun.
And way right of target on his opening effort. And that's what we're talking about. You can get very amped. Not only is it a major, but you're rolling in front of a lot of folks, and yeah, the look away.
Almost looked like he was distracted.
So he's able to clean that one up and take a seat with the spare.
The number 1 qualifier made 2 telecasts at the 2010 PBA World Series of Bowling. He owns 8 international medals representing Canada. Dan, the man, McClellan.
Really nice young man, and certainly one of the up-and-comers on this PBA Tour. Very quietly, he has put together a great season. This will be his 5th top 20 finish, his 4th top 10 finish. He was 6th at the TOC. This, his first appearance at a U.S. Open.
Well, you're right, Rob. Dan McClellan just spills out class. You talk to this kid, he's just a class act. He's mature beyond his 25 years of age, a really nice kid. And when you talk to the superstars out here, the accomplished veterans, they all say the same thing. This is a good kid, good young man. But wasn't it me that said to watch out for this kid a few months ago, that this guy had game?
And an open frame for the promising Canadian in match number 1. And Dan, I know you're going to need some time to step back after that first frame. You had the option on picking which lane you wanted. Why did you pick to start on the right?
I picked to start on the right. I just wanted Bill to finish last. Give myself the opportunity to just, you know, take one shot at a time and put the pressure on him.
All right, Dan, thank you. We appreciate Dan joining us live. I mean, it takes a lot to have a live conversation with us in the midst of a major.
And then, especially after I got done telling you how much game he had, and he misses the 3-6-10. But, you know, the whole thing about U.S. Opens is avoiding open frames and making your spares.
And this one won't be all that easy either for McClellan. Seeking his first ever Lumber Liquidator PBA Tour title. Here's his effort in the 2nd.
A tremendously high backswing, a lot of power. You see the hand up the back part of the bowling ball to try to control the downlane reaction. And that's a cell phone.
So cell phone going off in the crowd, and Dan wisely steps back and takes a breather. And Randy, you touched on just how mature this young man is, and he's had to grow up quickly. His dad passed away in 2008, and his father, Leonard, was his biggest supporter. He happened to win a regional on Father's Day. A very emotional moment for him. And back-to-back open frames for Danny Mac.
Yeah, and a really tough start for Dan. And that's the thing. He makes the split. If he would have made the 3-6-10 in the first frame and convert the baby split, it's 18 and a spare in the second frame. Right now, he's down 22. Bill O'Neill's rolled one frame.
Still without a strike here in match number 1, and that shouldn't be overly surprising because one of the themes of the U.S. Open, Randy, is just how difficult the lane conditions are here at the U.S. Open.
Without question. No free willy to the right or a bunch of hold in the middle part of the lane. You got to be very accurate, not only with location, but with speed and rotation as well.
Back-to-back spares for your defending U.S. Open champ.
We got a really good look at Bill O'Neill's form there, and I think it's just flawless. I mean, he's a really strong kid to begin with, so he's got a great base at the foul line, but he's been working really hard on getting his ball into the swing a little bit sooner. As you see the equipment that he's using, he's trying not to get too jacked, but he's using a raw hammer jacked. Rob, one of the things you try to do as a player on any telecast, but especially a U.S. Open, is you try to somehow find a way to breathe and control the nerves and the heart rate. And when your opponent starts open, that usually helps to free your swing up pretty quick.
Now let's see how Dan McClellan, the young man from Windsor, Ontario, Canada, can respond in the third. Danny Mac just missing that 10-pin.
You know, one of the interesting things in speaking with the players that made the telecast is, you know, this week when you left a 10-pin, you really didn't get too upset because you knew you left yourself something you could make, a single-pin spare. So it was okay.
It was Norm Duke, our #1 seed, who gave us that quote just a few hours ago. We'll see Duke in action tomorrow afternoon. Hey, look at that. Soul mark for Danny Mac. That's one to grow on.
Well, it's not hard to root for Danny Mac, and again, I can't say enough about his talent. He's proven it this season as you take a look at his arsenal, not going with the strongest in the bag, but deciding to go with the outburst, like O'Neill not using the strongest ball. I think the reason is because they're trying to go as straight as they can early on in this fresh U.S. Open oil pattern, something straight in between second and third arrow.
We begin the fourth. Danny Mac still seeking a strike. We talked about how challenging the U.S. Open oil pattern is. We'll have more on that in the next coming segment, but you talk about the grind that is the U.S. Open. These guys are here for, on average, 12 hours a day, bowling. To make matters worse for Danny Mac, he got hit with a bout of food poisoning late last night, told us only got about 2 hours of sleep. Still able to make the show, still seeking a strike, and there is his third open frame. And he said, "I'm coming for you, Tom." A shout out to our friend Tom Doherty, who famously dropped a 100 on national television at the TOC a few weeks ago. So a huge early opening here for your defending U.S. Open champ, Bill O'Neill. Okay.
What a great shot there. You know, you talk about Dan McClellan and the class act that he is. Well, this young man here is cut out of the same mold. You won't meet or find a nicer guy than Bill O'Neill. He's a class act, and
Comes from his parents as well.
Absolutely.
Who are here in attendance.
Yep, just a great family, great upbringing, and just a nice young man. But obviously, one of the best players out here on this tour.
Early on in the season, it was Bill O'Neill who was your favorite for Player of the Year honors. Mika Koivuniemi has really stolen that mantle. Mika, your 3rd seed. You'll see him tomorrow. There's Bill's dad to the left, Bill Sr., and right over Bill's right shoulder, almost in the middle of the screen, is his lovely wife, Christy, a great supporter of what he has done. It's always a pleasure to see that smiling face at the bowling center when we walk in.
Yes, sir.
Strike number 2 for O'Neill. O'Neill needing to win here and then in the next match versus Ryan Schaefer to move on to tomorrow's championship round, and you can see it live at 3 Eastern on ESPN. 90 minutes of action. Norm Duke, your number 1 seed. Tommy Jones, your 2 seed. Mika Koivuniemi, your 3 seed. How about that for a loaded trio waiting for you on Sunday? Ball change to Danny Mack, and it results in his first strike. Good change.
So far.
Well, it beats 3 open frames out of his first 4 efforts.
And quite honestly, those were 3 opens that were makeable spares, not the easiest spares to make. 3-6-10 in the first, baby split 3-10 in the second, and then it was the 3-6-9 in the third. However, if he converts all 3 of those, we have a ball game.
This match still without a pair of strikes for either participant.
And that's what you expect in a U.S. Open final. You want to see a grind out. You know it's coming. Don't expect 270s and 280s and 250s. It's basically survival of the fittest. Keep the ball in play, avoid open frames, make your spares, strikes will come. And it's just a grind out, Rob.
For those students out there who are having issues juggling the books and the bowling ball, Randy, try enduring what McClellan is trying to effort right now. We'll explain when our live coverage returns to North Brunswick, New Jersey. Welcome back to the Brunswick Zone Carolier, your host venue for the 68th edition of the Lumber Liquidators U.S. Open. Bill O'Neill, your defending champ, your 6th seed, in control, up 35 early on in this one. Tomorrow night, ESPN delivers, oh boy, a good one. The Knicks with Carmelo and Amari Stoudemire in action as they take on LeBron and the Heat in Miami. NBA Sunday on ESPN Live, 8 Eastern, also available online at ESPN3.com. Time now for our weekly Know the Wood segment, brought to you by our good friends at Lumber Liquidators.
The 42-foot U.S. Open oil pattern is the toughest, nastiest lubricity the players have faced all season long. Why so tough, you ask? Look at this ocean of blue. This is solid oil from gutter to gutter. This is a flat 1-to-1 ratio oil pattern, meaning that all 39 boards are oiled exactly the same. What does that mean? Simple. Hit your target with the right amount of velocity and revolutions, or pay the price. The U.S. Open oil pattern is all about shot making.
Informative, as always, Randy. The use of lubricity piqued my interest.
I first heard that word from Nelson Burton Jr., I think back in 1988 or 89.
Lubricity.
I thought I would just, I thought I would bring it back to life.
No, it's a good one. It's a good one. Bill O'Neill up 35 as he closes out the 6th, looking for a double.
Mr. Big Shot just doubled up. 5th and 6th frame. He's clean right now. And that's the difference in this ball game. Dan McClellan, 3 open frames. Bill O'Neill clean through 6. What a beautiful shot right there from your defending U.S. Open champion.
Worst finish this season for O'Neill was 49th at the USBC Masters. This will be his 7th top 20 finish and 6th in the top 10. Should he win out, run the ladder from the 6th seed spot, it is going to make that Player of the Year vote awfully interesting, because that'll make it a two-man race between Mika Koivuniemi, your 3 seed tomorrow, and that man, Bill O'Neill. Through the nose, but that will be okay.
You see that, tripping that 10 out late, it's huge. Again, leaves himself an easy 4-7 spare. This ball a little bit left to target, and again, it doesn't take a whole lot. But that's the biggie. Tripping the 10 out late, Bill O'Neill says, hey, that's fine.
The reaction says it all. At the U.S. Open, you will take that.
Right now, if he converts here, Dan McClellan has to throw a 5-bagger to take the lead.
And he only has 1 strike thus far through 6.
Tall odds on this oil pattern.
So O'Neill stays clean. Danny McClellan steps up. Now McClellan is still a student at Saginaw Valley State. Will graduate in May with a BA in sociology. Right now in the midst of taking 3 classes, 2 in psychology, 1 in sociology. But you guessed it, yeah, he's been missing some classes lately. Leaves the 10 pin, and Danny Mac is going to be away from Michigan for a while. He's going to head up to Buffalo, where we'll be next week, and then after that, Indianapolis for a slew of shows. So he is essentially on the road for about 3 weeks, and he says, a very understanding faculty. They have let me work through my professional dreams and also try and finish up my academic work. Not easy to take care of both of those things at the same time, particularly at this level. Again, this is a young man, Randy, who's making his first U.S. Open appearance, and he makes the TV show.
He's got game. You're going to see a lot from this player on this tour.
You know what he's done reminds me a lot of kind of the position Bill O'Neill was in a couple years ago, making a lot of TV shows, not able to get that win. You could sense this kid was on the verge of big things.
You know, the players before him, when you'd see these superstars in the making come out on tour, I remember when Marshall Holman was the king of bowling. I was a young man then, but watching Marshall was one of my favorite things to do. And then, you know, and then I came out on tour, and then the next big superstar to be was Rick Steelsmith before he got injured. And then I remember Chris Barnes coming out onto this tour and making an impact immediately. Then it's Bill O'Neill. You know, every 2, 3, 4, 5 years you get a superstar in the making. And I got to be honest, I think Dan McClellan's going to be that guy.
Talking to Dan McClellan on who are the guys that he watches, and he said Chris Barnes and that guy, Bill O'Neill. These are the guys that he's trying to emulate. You know?
There's just so many young, exciting superstars on this tour. Let's throw Jason Belmonte in the mix.
Who's in the crowd here tonight? Michael Fagan as well.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch the new power game. Although Bill O'Neill has a lot of revs and Dan McClellan has a lot of revs, these guys can play and they can hit targets and they can be accurate.
So O'Neill takes care of that one during this little window of a break. Randy, we have a question for you. It's your More of What Matters to You fan question, brought to you by the makers of One A Day, and comes your way from John Van Dyke of Rotterdam, New York. How much tougher is the mental aspect of the game during the U.S. Open? Good question, John.
Well, when you talk to Norm Duke, he says it's 80% mental. Some of the other players, you know, they say the same thing. However, you still have to throw the ball well. But the key to the U.S. Open is being patient. You know you're going to bowl a 170 game, a 160 game. You got to shake it off, be patient, bide your time, avoid open frames like Bill O'Neill's doing, manage your game, but be patient. The mental grind of this is unlike any tournament we bowl on the rest of the season.
Norm Duke had a great line for us talking about the patience, saying you really have to be patient. When you get on TV, you have to even ratchet up that patience level even more. And O'Neill is being very patient. Just 3 strikes, but up 42, and he has been clean throughout, and he remains that way through 9.
I got to tell you, anything over 200 is going to bode well for any player on today's telecast as well as tomorrow. Dan McClellan now, the best he can shoot, 193 if he strikes out. That would force Bill O'Neill to mark in the 10th frame. But Dan needs a strike here in the 9th, all 3 in the 10th, to force Bill O'Neill to show up in the 10th frame.
Didn't like it. And another nasty
Surprised they got 8 out of that.
split.
And again, it's tough. These players bowled 16 games already today, not counting practice. The grind of this tournament all week long, 50 total games to this point. And again, it doesn't take much. And unfortunately for Dan McClellan, he's paid the ultimate price every time he's missed.
No, it's a good point. Norm Duke and Tommy Jones and Mika Koivuniemi very happy that they have the night off to recoup and get their game together. On the flip side, Ryan Schaefer, who was in the 3rd spot heading into the final game of the day, the position round game, and he dropped from 3rd to 4th, which meant that the 44-year-old had to bowl tonight. And that certainly agitated him. And he's in shape. He can handle it. But boy, would he like a night off.
You know, I think the other thing in looking at what's happening to Dan McClellan, you have to ask yourself,
right now.
suffering from a bout of food poisoning from last night and only 2 hours of sleep, how tough has that been on him today?
Yep.
Is he out of gas?
Very good point. So his game today is out of gas. It is done. It is empty. Bill O'Neill, your 6th seed, will move on to take on 4 seed Ryan Schaefer. This is 13th TV appearance at a major, but the New Yorker has yet to win one at a major. Go to the floor ball.